Very good morning. Very good morning.
How are you doing?
Not bad at all. What about you?
All well, all well. Kind of hoping that the next academic session will be, be going physical with the classes
Yeah,
and all.
yeah. Same here
So,
for me as well. All the business meetings are going on virtually.
okay. So, are you kind of right now in Himachal or
Yeah,
are you?
I'm staying here for last more than 3 years. Yeah, almost 4 years since the time
Okay.
I opened my company. Yeah,
And what about the CR Park place? I mean, you still have that.
yeah. That's the kind of my permanent address. But yeah, not that I
Okay.
stay there. I don't stay there.
But how do you manage the meetings and all? So, you kind of come down.
Oh, I fly. I fly very frequently, and I have an airport only 45 minutes away from my
Oh,
place.
that's good. I think then connectivity is not an issue.
So that's one of the reasons I've chosen the place. So the three things I
Uh,
have chosen. Number one is the airport should be there, very good
mm,
internet connectivity, there were optical
mm.
fiber, 100 Mbps speed, and the third thing is the very good phone connectivity. So these three things I ensured before choosing the place.
Yeah, because the kind of work that you're doing, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So anything new, exciting happening at your end?
Everything is new in that fact that there is
Mm.
nothing old in this space.
Yeah,
So
I know. Everything is
yeah,
kind of.
every day, every week, something new is coming up.
Mhm.
All the models, say for instance, optimization technique is, I might not touch, but I shall give an overview. So
Okay.
what we did in our past, in our in our prime, you must have remembered that it was all about at max what linear programming, non-linear programming, integer programming. These were the max optimization techniques we did. But nowadays, those things are kind of acid obsolete. Which are nowadays all these taboo search, genetic algorithm, even a lot of hybrid models across the techniques, including and colony optimization, swarm optimizations. So a
Mhm,
lot of
mhm.
new things are constantly coming up, and that's what the organizations are also very educated. It's not like that the previous days that they don't know anything, we already know, and then we go nothing like that. Uh,
Mhm,
like the guys from the IITs and all that good
mhm.
studies.
Yeah, I
IS.
think that's what is very interesting that a lot of new guys, who are coming into this space, they pretty much understand everything.
Yeah, they're pretty educated, and they will tell you very clearly if somebody if you are not up to the mark, and especially
Mhm.
African organizations, they are pretty on your face.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah,
But how
though.
do you see these traditional companies, the classical companies, let's say an FMCG kind of companies? How are they embracing all these new technologies and how they are kind of.
You must be knowing that I was with AC Nielsen.
Mhm.
By virtue of that my association, I was associated with all these classical FMCG companies that you mentioned.
Okay.
Uh, so they of course don't do by themselves. They rely on the guys like Nielsen.
Mhm.
Precisely. And then we used to do the models for all the classical companies, be it the PNG, be it the HLL, be it all the cosmetic companies, not only the FMCG in that food sector. Nielsen precisely used to take care. We used to do all the modeling for them, and it's a kind of ecosystem. Not only we used to do the modeling part, but then there are kind of brand guys or digital guys like the Google, YouTube. They are there, and they used to pass the media data for us. There are media agencies per se. Uh, so in that way, the entire ecosystem work to make the business, because that's finally the dollar comes from selling the product.
Yeah, that's right.
All ensure that their
Mm.
business is super, so that subsequently we get the business from them.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, true. So, anything exciting in the lockdown, post-COVID world that you kind of came across something that kind of got your attention or your fancy?
Sure. So of course, and that of course changed the dynamics of business in many ways.
Hmm.
In my case, also for that matter, it is not only about the outer world. Even in my business, also it got changed. So of course, let me give a very gross and very real life example.
Yeah.
One of my client was a major uh, auto auto client in India.
Okay.
Say Mahindra, let me name it also. That's fine.
Hmm.
Now, for instance, in the analytics, in the lockdown phase, we found that the sales of the cars have gone down. It is
Okay.
almost going zero at that
Mm.
point. Not now. It
Hmm.
is again picked up for last
Hmm.
couple of months.
Hmm.
Analytics at the end of that is a kind of fancy to most of the companies. What is very important for them, the sales are taking place or not, be it mathematically, non-mathematically, anyway. that matter.
Okay. Okay.
So they are not going to spend any kind of marketing dollars or any kind of budget for analytics. That's the kind of decision many of the companies. So at that time, even if analytics went down, but many of the things also came up. That's the kind of business dynamics how the lockdown plays, like automation or the robotic process automation. So that went up significantly. Of course, I expanded my business at that point of time. I have also developed a team of automation, and then I got many clients in the automation space. That is number one. Number two, that went up, though analytics and AI went down at that point of time.
Okay. Okay.
Automation went up. Number two is the digital transformation, though that's a kind of an all-encompassing term. But to be more specific, many of the business houses who never thought of bringing their business to a kind of digital mode, they have also started coming up with the web app, mobile app, and when they're doing a lot of some basic analytics, I'm not saying very sophisticated analytics, also followed those kind of developments. So that's the kind of business dynamics we have seen. A lot of things went, and that's not only for me, what I experienced. I've just shared my experience, but across the industry. So analytics, AI went down, automation, digital transformation went up. So that's the kind of dynamics we have found in lockdown.
I see. I see. So it's very interesting, I think, then.
This is very interesting. This is very interesting. And the best part or the most interesting thing is coping up with dynamics. You cannot just afford to be in your competency zone or your comfort zone that, yeah, I know this thing or I am comfortable with this thing, therefore I shall be here. Then you will just losing the game for sure. Sure. Why? For example, suppose the clients which I have got for automation or for digital transformation. Now those clients are now coming up for analytics.
I see.
Right.
I see.
So the business that's how the business goes. But if I just sit quietly, then I have lost this business as well as my existing client, because my existing or the clients who I was working, they might go to some other guys.
True.
That way, the business must go on. That's what we see. Whatever be the scenario, by this way or that way, by analytics, AI, or automation, or cloud computing. So that way, now we have increased the horizon to the entire industry 4.0. So almost 12 verticals I'm running, cloud computing.
Yeah, I saw that. That's quite exciting.
Yeah, and that's the need of the hour. It is kind of just like mutual fund. You cannot put all your eggs in one basket.
True.
So diversify the business, and given the nature of the environment, the outer environment, something will come up, something will go down. That's fine. Yeah, that's how it goes.
So I think once you start doing, everybody has your profile, so I've kind of shared it with them.
Okay.
So I think if you can just spend a minute or two talking about the kind of stuff that you are doing before you officially start on retail analytics.
Sure.
So I think there are quite a few who have logged in. So let's start probably. Good morning, guys. I hope you're there.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Shubham. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Shubham.
Morning, sir.
Morning, Rajiv. So Tuhin is already there. I think you've been listening to our conversation for the last 2-3 minutes, so you understand that kind of how things are kind of evolving. Welcome, Tuhin, to the session. Thank you so much for joining us. These are PGDM students, and they are in their last trimester. It's a pity that they had to spend their last year in a lockdown mode and on online. But I guess we all have to live with the limitations and all. And so they're fairly conversant with the whole analytics space and all, because they have done electives, they have done core courses. So at the fag end, we have this marketing analytics course, and within that, we have this module on retail analytics, which is where I requested you to join us and share your experience and the kind of work that is happening, So Tuhin works in a very cutting edge space, at the forefront of technology, and there are some very exciting stuff that he's doing. And I already shared the website and the profile, so you pretty much know. But as I requested Tuhin to quickly spend a minute or two talking about the new things that he's doing, and I think that would catch the fancy of a lot of you sitting there who are looking at making careers in this space, So welcome, Tuhin. I hand it over to you. Take it forward.
Thank you so much, Professor. It was indeed a pleasure to meet you and your students. As far as my career goes, the first 10 years I was into academics, used to teach in the leading big schools of Delhi NCR. Then I found that a lot of things I found, like one thing was that, what I am teaching and what the industry does, there is a lot of gap. So though I was primarily into research, even in my academics and research and consultancy, even if I was teaching, but I thought that it's time for me to leave academics and join the industry. So I started working as a kind of architect decision science in a leading high-tech company in Hyderabad. Then went to Bombay, worked in another company. In between, I worked in multiple other countries as well, including US, Southeast Asia, and many other countries. And then subsequently joined an AC Nielsen in Bangalore, where I kind of led their Southeast Asia business. And then, of course, worked with some kind of what we call as a kind of CTO as a service. So that's how, like, a service you do. In the same manner, we do CTO as a service, and then helped many other startups and many other companies in between, and then subsequently started my own company. As far as the verticals that I worked in is primarily with 12 verticals, to be more precise, which includes the entire Industry 4.0 space, which includes the AI, blockchain, analytics, business and social research. CA is what we say, like CTO as a service, CDO, Chief Digital Officer as a service, Chief Analytics Officer as a service, CIO as well as a service. So many of the startup companies, they cannot afford to have the kind of complete or permanent role of CTO. So they hired me for accomplishing either a project or a kind of any kind of turnkey solutions, and then I helped them there. Cloud computing is another area. I work cybersecurity, data engineering is again the core, I would say, because analytics is only possible since you are all now well versed in analytics. Analytics is only possible when you have the data in the right form, shape, and place. Otherwise, analytics is just another fancy term. So data engineering helps us to have the data in place. We develop the data lakes if required. We ensure that the big data is actually being managed rightly. So that's the data engineering part. Digital transformation is, as I discussed with Prof, about developing the web apps, mobile apps, and that too in the latest technologies, which includes, again, so all the technologies go hand in hand. Like when I'm saying the apps, they are all in the cloud. We use AWS Cognito or many of the latest technologies. Intelligent automation is something which we mix or which we merge rather two technologies. One is the robotic process automation, and second one is the AI. So that's the intelligent automation part. So many of the decisions, AI you must be knowing. Again, it may sound like a very fancy term, but there are 2-3 things which primarily been covering 80 to 90% of AI is covered by the computer vision is one part. The speech recognition is another part. Within speech recognition, there is intonation mining. Is not only about the NLP part. NLP is separate. That was pretty old. But the intonation mining, speech recognition, primarily computer vision. So that's the AI part. So when we take those parts and automate stuff based on that, so that's the intelligent automation part. A managed service is pretty old, managing the entire company's networks, servers, that's the pretty old part. And the management consultancy, and then this consultancies, which is I mentioned within bracket, like IA. IA is like nothing but the intelligent automation. Sorry, it is about the intelligence amplification. So what is that? It is not the kind of traditional consultants in the sense that a consultant like McKinsey, BCG, they will come to your organization, spend some 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, study, and then come out with a solution. That's kind of pretty old in the sense that by the time they will come out with a solution, the entire dynamics will change, the business problem will change. So what happens is that in a very automated way, we take the input data. Input data can be the internal data, which are the finance, production, customer, market, or the technical data, the social media or the news data, macroeconomic data. And then we have a kind of diagnostic engine which generates the root causes or the factors of the problem. And then from there, we predict that what kind of strategic decision we recommend, what kind of decisions they will take, and what is the probability of success in the decision. So that's a kind of management consultancy. Any questions so far? You must be, many terms might be very new to you, or you are acquainted to some extent. So any questions so far about what I do or these technologies?
I think they're kind of conversant with some of the stuff that you've talked about.
Sure, I'm sure they are.
Okay. Rajiv, anything that you have in mind? Rajiv, Shobit?
Just one question.
Please.
How prominently is deep learning right now being used across multiple industries? Like, are they adopting these things in their businesses or not right now? So that, because right now what I felt is deep learning is still very agnostic. Companies are agnostic in terms of using such techniques. So just wanted to know your
Why are you
views.
saying agnostic? I've not understood, but would you please explain the word? Why are you saying agnostic in that way? I
Because
shall explain the word.
it's still a like kind of a black box, because they don't understand what's happening inside it. So unless and until you have some equations, unless and until you have what's there basically inside it, uh, because even in my SIP as well, I felt they were not adopting it very quickly. So that's why I just wanted to know your view.
Sure, I'm going to give my view. I have one question for you, of course, to clarify your question better. So you are conversing with deep learning, right? You know that stuff, right?
Not much, sir.
Not much. Okay. So let me clarify that part, and then I shall automatically the answer will come. So see, let me start a bit, 10 years down the 20 years down the line. So let me tell the evolution very quickly, and then you'll understand what is deep learning and why it is a kind of must-have for the organization and how they are using it. So if you look back 20 years down the line, it was all about the business reports, which we used to call business intelligence, right, at one point of time. That was kind of synonymous with descriptive analytics. Then subsequently, it started with the predictive analytics, where it is all about the forecasting part, predicting part. And then optimization tools come, whatsoever it is. But the point is that the business problem changed. What kind of problem changed? Uh, by the way, before the problem changes, even in the predictive analytics, please remember that neural network is not something new. We used to have these multi-layer perceptron, radial basis functions. These are the different types of neural networks. These were then some 30 years, 40 years old. So neural network was nothing something new about it. Now, the business problems changed in the sense that computer vision is a business problem, right? Now, computer vision in the sense there is an image, and you're supposed to find out what that image is. Say the application can be the face recognition. That is a kind of business problem in these days. Now, the traditional techniques, traditional modeling techniques like neural network also might not work in such scenario. So then the deep learning techniques came. What are the deep learning techniques? Deep learning techniques means that instead of the traditional neural network has got some 5 hidden layers. If you know about the neural network architecture, at least some high level pictures, so you will remember that there is input layer. In between there are hidden layers with some maximum 3 to 5, and there are output layer, right? Like that it used to happen. But now things have changed. Why things have changed? Because the business problems changed. So instead of 5 hidden layers, it has now expanded to 100 hidden layers, 200, 300 hidden layers, so that every pixel of the image they can recognize and they can figure out that who it is. So that's the kind of business problem demanded the analytics tools to be evolved, and the analytics tool evolved. So that's the deep part. Okay, that's the deep part. So shallow was that neural network with 3 to 5 hidden layers, and the deep is about the hidden layers when it got expanded. Now your question is that has it been adapted? Agnostic is not the word I would say. Agnostic means something different. I shall tell you what is the agnostic part. The question is that has it been adapted across the industry? That was your precisely the question. Answer is that the organizations, I shall give you the examples also what kind of organizations. The organizations who work in this computer vision part, they have to adapt. There is no option, because all these computer vision or image recognition techniques are based on the deep learning techniques. So to name a few, like convolutional neural network, CNN, is the most used computer vision algorithm, which has got several varieties within it. There are deep CNN, RCNN, lot of CNNs are there. Then there are radial basis function. Then you have got restricted Boltzmann machines. You have got the RNN, recurrent neural network. You have got the several other deep learning algorithms. So point is that if the business demands a computer vision recognition, they have to adapt. There are no ifs and buts. There are no alternatives for that matter. So that's the one answer. The adoption part. Now, agnostic, if that is the what you really meant, well, organizations are not really agnostic to any particular technology. Say, for instance, what does agnostic mean? It means that it can be done with Python, it can be done with TensorFlow. For companies, for organizations, that doesn't matter as long as the cost is been on the lower side, as long as it is open source, to be more precise, to be more clear. So in that way, they're pretty agnostic in the sense it doesn't matter whether you are doing it by Python or R or TensorFlow or any of the software open source of your choice, as long as it serves the purpose. Have I answered your question? Any further question here?
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome. Okay. So with that, any other questions before I first bridge between marketing analytics, retail analytics, and then I start with retail analytics?
I think let's start probably, and then kind of questions keep coming in.
Sure. So let me share my screen. I guess my screen is visible, right?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, guys. So retail analytics is actually a vast thing. It has got several things within it, several dimensions, several aspects within it. Let me, before diving deep into the retail analytics, let me connect it with the marketing analytics part. That's something very critical because it shouldn't come to you as a kind of isolation. It is a kind of integral part of marketing analytics. Though I shall try to, because I have been given 3 sessions, I shall try to restrict my lectures. Yeah, can you please be mute? Thank you. Okay. So yeah, marketing analytics is all about, primarily 2 things are there. One is that a lot of customer analytics takes place in the sense of customer segmentation, customer profiling. It includes the target marketing. It includes the recommendation engine. So in that way, don't assume that these things are beyond retail analytics, right? Say if I think about the online retailing, these Amazons or any of these organizations, they are very much doing this retail this recommendation engine part. So that's very much a part of retail analytics, even if they are traditionally be considered as marketing analytics. Similarly, the other aspects of marketing analytics is about the marketing mix modeling, marketing budget optimizations. They are also very much a part of retail analytics. By the way, are these terms known to you, or if there are any questions, I can clarify these terms as well, like target marketing, how it's been done by propensity modeling, or the marketing mix modeling, especially marketing mix modeling. Every retailer does it, by the way, though I'm not going to teach you per se, because that is primarily a part of marketing analytics, but I'm just trying to connect it. Are these terms known to you?
Some of it, I think they have got exposed when they were doing this retail course. So I guess
ask me a few questions if the terms are still not clear. Whatever terms are not clear, feel free to ask me. Let it be an interactive session. Huh? Please not make it a kind of lecture. That's very boring.
Yeah, I guess everybody there, if there's any new term that comes up, please feel free to intervene and ask.
Yeah, please ask. Please interact. That's very important.
Can you help us understand marketing mix modeling that you just said?
Yeah. So I think the most widely used modeling techniques, you have to take all the modeling techniques which are there currently in the market. more than 50% of the models are the marketing mix model. And for an organization like SC Nielsen, why I'm giving the example of Nielsen, not because I am from Nielsen or I was from Nielsen, but because they're the number one, still number one, even if they're elephant, but they're still number one in the globe. 80% of the modeling techniques of Nielsen are marketing mix modeling. Now, conceptually, it is very simple. You know about marketing mix, right? That you have studied in your term 1 or term 1, all these 4 P's, 7 P's. Now, if you kind of dive it deep further, all these P's are full of variables, right? For example, if you take the promotions have got advertisements, sales promotions, which is nothing but the discounts. Even advertisements, you can further break into the digital, non-digital. Digital has got several types like YouTube, Facebook, Google, and then each of these types have got their metrics to measure the impressions, views, the visits, the clicks. So point is that what is the effectiveness of each of these variables? And there are hundreds of variables, which includes price as well, another very important variable of the marketing mix, which includes distribution. The product includes the different branding variables. What is the impact of each of these variables in generating the sales? That's a very, very, very important decision. Why it's an important decision? Because the next step is the marketing budget optimization. Because accordingly, depending on which one is more effective, which one is less effective, the marketing dollars get allocated. So now, what I want to why I'm discussing or why I'm throwing this name here, because there are no retailers who don't use it. That means every retailer use marketing mix modeling. That's such an integral part. So so even if it is not called a kind of retail analytics per se, but that's very much a part of the retailer's job to do a marketing mix modeling. Am I clear? What is marketing mix modeling? Like, think of a kind of the simplest example I can give by after discussing the theory. The example can be a regression equation. A simplest example is a regression equation, a multiple regression equation. You have got the dependent variable and there are several independent variables, right, in a regression equation. So what happens? What is the dependent variable in a kind of marketing mix model? The total sales volume, right? The sales volume, the sales that is getting generated. That's the kind of dependent. Dependent on what? Dependent on several variables, different kinds of price, promotions. So those are the different independent variables. You have got hundreds of variables. And what are those coefficients of the regression equation? Coefficients means that, say, y equals to a plus b1 x1 plus b2 x2. So what are this b1 x1 and what is this b1 and what is this b2? b1 is nothing but the impact of x1 on y. Y is the dependent variable. x1 is the independent variable, which is nothing but the kind of, it can be the YouTube ad, Google ad, whatever. So it typically figures out what is the exact impact, the b1, b2, b3. But yeah, don't think that it throws just the coefficients. Maybe since you're not exposed to it deeply, I shall take maybe half an hour in the next Saturday on this marketing mix modeling. It never, the consultants like us, we just don't give the coefficients, because business guys cannot consume the regression coefficients. That is that's none of their concern. So we generate a lot of insights, generate a lot of valuable insights from it, and then give the actionable insights to them. That is very important, because business doesn't care about statistics, analytics, or whatever, as long as it should provide value to them. That's the very important term. You must be knowing that what is the value I'm bringing on the table for the business. So not the statistical coefficients by themselves have the value. So they help in generating a lot of value. So, but that's the underlying equation I just told you. But not that we use that vanilla multiple regression equation. There are a lot of variations to it. Can be the Bayesian regression equation. There are 20 types of regression at least, and we use depending on the situation what kind of regression. But yeah, vanilla we never use, because that is not that kind of it. But just to give you an example, or to help you relate with your stuff that you have studied, the mathematics and the marketing, what is marketing mix modeling? Am I making sense to you guys?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
perfect. So in that way, whatever you study in not only marketing mix modeling, whatever you study in marketing analytics, it can be customer segmentation for that matter, target marketing, whom to target, whom not to target, recommendation engine, market basket analysis. Again, a classic case. I think everyone knows, even if you have not studied retail analytics, are very much part of retail. So the entire marketing analytics are done by the retail. Okay, now what I'm going to cover in these 3 sessions, what have been given to me, are certain stuffs which are exclusively for the retail, which I'm not going to teach you customer segmentation, target marketing, or all those marketing analytics stuff, or the discriminant analysis, any of the marketing analytics stuff. I'm going to teach you precisely, rather discuss, teach not the right word. I'm going to discuss with you the stuffs which are done exclusively for the retail analytics. So assortment, I'm sure you know the word. You know the word. What is assortment? What does that mean? Just English meaning of the word assortment. You can all unmute yourself if there is no background noise, and then continuously speak with me. No need to mute yourself if there is no background noise. Just feel free to unmute yourself. I assume there is no background noise, and then keep speaking with me. It's a kind of discussion, interaction, not a kind of lecture or teaching. Huh? Yeah. What's the assortment?
Collection of things.
Yep, precisely. Do you know the word optimization? What does that mean? Just simple English meanings.
So the best possible output.
Sorry, would you please repeat yourself?
Sir, to get the best possible output.
Correct. And why it is required for that matter? Why it is required? Why optimization is required? If I ask this question,
To make the best use of resources, because all of our resources are limited.
Correct.
That's why I need to optimize things.
Precisely. So there are always constraints in the real world. There is nothing called infinite. There are always constraints, and we have to, as you rightly mentioned, the best use. Yeah. So what is the constraint in a retail store?
So the shelf space.
Precisely. Very good. Yeah. So that's why you need to optimize. Otherwise, there was no requirement of this optimization. Otherwise, you could keep all the stuffs in the world in your store, but that's practically not possible. So that's why optimization is required. So I'm not reading out what is there on the slide, but that's the essence of why optimization is required, or why assortment optimization is required. And then these are all these 8 stuffs that I have mentioned here, which I'm going to discuss subsequently, are an integral part of this assortment optimization. Now, why do you think it is required? Though it is mentioned in the slide, no need for me to reading out, but you can tell me just for your common sense why assortment optimization is required from business sense. Tell me.
Sir, I think assortment is important to increase the chances of a sale. So it is basically to increase the sales by
correct. And increase the sales by, see, these are the words mentioned as systematic delisting or systematic strategic listing. What does that mean? It means that you have to continuously see that whatever I'm offering in my category, am I having the right stuffs in it? Do I need to delete something? Do I need to include something in my category? So that's the continuous decision the category manager needs to do. So precisely, it goes without saying, but let me mention this: an entire AO part is been done by the category manager. You know about the retail, the retail operations like merchandising and who is who in the store operations. Merchandising management is been studied by you, I guess, right? In the retail?
Yeah, they have done that in retail as a part of the retail elective.
Right. So that is known to you. So the category management you must have studied. So that's you must have studied it. That what does a category manager do? So that's precisely the category manager's job is, like systematic listing, strategic listing, and that's what we are going to study today, how it has been done. And what does that mean? Like, what does this assortment optimization cycle means? It means that SKU rationalization, like what I don't want, but is still there, right? You need to rationalize it. You need to reduce it, delete it. You need to ensure that the right things must be listed. So that's the SKU rationalization. Then the SKU introduction, like what I want, but is not there yet. So what all stuff must be there, should be there in my category. And then the macro space allocation localization, we will discuss that, which is like that, do I find the right products in my local store? So ensuring that localization is a very important part, like, and it happens at a very micro level, maybe at a particular festival takes place at a particular corner of the country. And then the retail store must be sensitive to that, must have the information, must have the data, and they must do justice to that data to keep the stuffs required for that festival, which might not be a kind of national festival, but has a huge hype in that particular locality. So that's the macro space allocation localization. And core, continuous improvement of process capabilities tools. So will I be able to maintain the process? That's the very important part. Just which crossed my mind, which I must ask you at this stage. You must be knowing about several analytics techniques, like as I mentioned a few, like market mix modeling, customer segmentation, and so on and so forth. Can you tell me, just it's kind of common sense question, but it's a very important common sense here. What is the most important analytics technique or requirement for a retail store, for any retail organization? What is the most important? Which is the mother, I would say, mother of all techniques. If that is not there, nothing will happen. And this
the market basket analysis.
Nope. There is something more fundamental, and this brainstorming is very important for you. You must think. Just it is not about your knowledge. I'm not asking about whether you know it or not. That's not the question.
Consumer profiling.
Something even more important. What is even more important? The mother of everything.
So sales prediction.
Precisely, demand forecasting. Precisely. That's the mother of everything. Why I'm saying that? Why you should question me? Why you are saying so? Why it is so important? Now think of a retail store. Retail store again doesn't exist in isolation. You have to think of the entire ecosystem of a retail store's existence. And what is the most important parameter to make a retail store thrive? The supply chain. Now, if you look at the analytics components, now supply chain means, again, I'm thinking entirely from the analytics perspective. What are the key things in supply chain analytics? Just, and even if you don't know, but even if you're not studied, supply chain is a subject. Many of the best schools don't teach, but that's fine. But think from a kind of common sense. What are the key aspects of supply chain analytics?
Sir, demand management and inventory management.
Inventory optimization is a very important thing. What else? Like network planning optimization, like where will be your distribution centers, correct? That's very important for retail as well. Or your transportation analytics, right? Replenishment analytics, that all the key aspects of supply chain. Now think of all these things what I have mentioned as of now. So what I mentioned, the 4 things I mentioned, like inventory optimization, replenishment analytics, network planning and optimization, that is for the distribution locations, and the transportation analytics. Are any of these 4 things possible without demand forecasting? You cannot optimize your inventory if you don't have demand forecasting in place. You cannot have the replenishment analytics in place if you don't know the demand. If you cannot put your distribution centers at the right place, if you cannot forecast the demand correctly. And same for the transportation analytics. So the mother of entire supply chain analytics or retail analytics lies in the demand forecasting. So yeah, all the other things are important, as you mentioned, customer profiling, market basket analysis, all those things are important, definitely required, but the demand forecasting should be there at the first. And why I'm saying it here, when I mentioned about this macro space allocation localization part, again, what goes actually that triggered this thought is that demand forecasting part. If your demand forecasting engine, you cannot know if you have got hundreds of stores or thousands of stores across the country or globe. Not possible for you to know by person, and that comes the analytics part. You should have a robust demand forecasting engine or a platform at the back end that would tell you all the decisions, that would take all the decisions that matter for you. And that goes at a level of per SKU level forecasting takes place, per SKU per week. That's the level of forecasting that takes place. How many of you have watched the movie Moneyball?
Yes, sir.
Have you watched the movie Moneyball?
Yes, sir.
I think most of you have watched, right? If not, you should watch. That's kind of, that's something very important for analytics, understanding analytics in real life, how it has been applied. So if you have watched the movie, the most emphasis was given on the right question, asking the right question. And the same thing I would say here, that are we asking the right question? So what is the general questions people ask, that what scores the most goals in a kind of soccer team or in a kind of retail store? What scores the most sales? What item scores the most sales? But that's not the question to be asked. Instead of asking who scores the most goals or what items SKUs scores the most sales, the most important question should be that we should be asking that which team will win the most games. That's the assortment analytics, and we will primarily dwell on answering this question today. So what's the strategy? The strategy is like, it is a bit like choosing a soccer team, like based only on the number of goals each player has scored. If we choose like that, then we would end up with a team full of strikers only, right? Fulfilling the same roles and going for the same opportunity. So we require a kind of differentiated players. Every player should serve different purpose, right? A back is required, a person in the right wing, left wing. Every person plays a different role. The same thing is true for an assortment analytics. Every SKU should play its own role. If every SKU try to be the best seller, then there's a problem. And what is the problem? We're going to understand that. By the before going to the understand the problem, this is typically the kind of I have taken a screenshot, as you can see, from the software that we use. These are all the proprietary software for the leading companies in this space. This is the kind of which we are going to discuss. What does that mean? I'm going to discuss these quadrants, 4 quadrants. I'm going to discuss this chart as well. But these are the kind of different tools and techniques we use for coming out with this decision. So you have to be smart about the shelf variety, like that is the assortment, right? Like a team. So I've given a kind of example here. And so what is the example here? It's expanded space and variety drive additional chocolate bar sales. So that's the kind of scenario. So add a section, growing chocolate bar revenues, double the section size, it would further increase the revenue. But one has to also be vigilant, constantly vigilant, that at the same time, there is substantial losses on sugar candy, or record declines on gum and mints, or large revenue drops in cookies. So if the buyer, by the way, you know the meaning of the word buyer in the context of retail? All of you, please unmute yourself as long as there is no background noise. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue, which is very boring, to me at least. You know the word buyer?
Sir, so basically buyer is the one who actually takes the product out of a shelf and put it in his basket, I guess. Sir.
Not really. That's the common mistake. That's not at all true in the context
So
of
in
retail.
this case, is it the person who procures the various
Who
products?
procures the? That's the answer. Who procures the? Yeah. So that's the shopper. Huh? In retail terms, always remember, don't make this mistake if you are into retail. The buyer always means the person who procures the merchandises for the store. A merchandising manager, category manager, all the buyers. So the procurement manager. Absolutely. So are you getting the sense of this problem? Are you getting the sense of this problem? What is the problem going on? So you are thinking that the chocolate bar will increase the sales. Add a section, the chocolate bar revenue grows up, double the section size, record chocolate bar revenues. And at the same time, since you are doubling this section size, all the others are declining, then the buyer has not done a good job. That's a wrong decision. And it must be knowing by this time, since you're in MBA, that managers are paid the salaries because of the decisions they take. And that's the classic example of a wrong decision. So we will learn that how to take the right decision. That's exactly what we will move towards. And we will introduce a concept here called the incrementality. Yeah. So what is incrementality? It is the additional velocity. What is the meaning of the word velocity? Velocity means that the how much sales a store is generating per week. That's the rate of sales, the pace. That is the velocity part. So incrementality is the additional velocity each item brings to the store. So it could also be viewed as the velocity that the category would lose if the item brand segment wasn't on sale. So how have I explained this? So for instance, there is item A and item B, right? Item B has low incrementality but high cannibalization. Whereas item C has high incrementality and low cannibalization. So total sales increase is 110 by adding item B because it is cannibalizing the sales of item A. Whereas item C, the total sales increases to $150. So that's the kind of incrementality concept. That's something you have to be extremely cognizant of. So what factors associated with this high incrementality? Obviously, differentiated and high turning products. Differentiation is very important. So that has to be differentiated. And products that are supported highly also tend to be incremental. So what kind of product support you are getting? I'm going to discuss these things separately. That trends are a weak predictor. So trend you cannot consider for the incrementality. That is something very different. I'm going to discuss separately. What is trend and why it is a kind of having a very low correlation with incrementality.
Can you give an example, Tuhin, in the earlier slide with the help of the chocolate?
I've just given it here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is the allow incrementality to be the guiding principle. As you can see here is that there is 2% milk, 1% milk, and 1% milk turns fast, but is highly cannibalistic with 2% milk. You can see here, right? It's a lot of overlapping. But the strawberry milk is almost entirely incremental, but it turns are so low that 1% milk offers better incremental category contribution. Correct? And the chocolate milk has lower turns but provides more incremental category contribution. So that's why this assortment management or optimization is very important. You have to be cognizant about a couple of facts. As of now, I have introduced a couple of facts. There are more factors to it. One is that cannibalization. Number two is that just because of the cannibalization, the total category is increasing or not. I'm going to another example here. So how do we measure incrementality? So your question is that, should I include one chocolate bar to this chocolate bar? One means one section, right? Chocolate bar sales or not. But you have got the other products into the category. By the way, this category concept is clear to everyone, right? What is a category? This has been learned to you by data, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're talking about this category, chocolate category only. The question is that should I add here or not? So chocolate bar sales, sugar candy sales, gums and mint sales, cookie sales, they're all the part of the category. The question is that, is adding a chocolate bar incremental to total category sales? That's a very important part. So is the increase in sales for chocolate bars higher or lower than the opportunity cost of expanding chocolate bars? If it is higher than the opportunity cost, yeah, it's incremental. If it is lower, then it is not incremental. Expand chocolate bars would hurt the entire section. So that's the thing you have to see. It is not about whether if that particular product is getting sold, so you will keep including, not like that, because you have got a space constraint. That's the whole problem. So you have to think as a category, the entire category is moving up or down. We'll discuss it further. So yeah, as again the third example I have given, like it may the standard performance metrics may look exactly same: 10 units per week, $100 per week, profit $10 per week, but this is 10% incremental, this is 70% incremental. That is red and this is green. So that's exactly. So don't go by the standard performance metrics like volume, dollars, profit. It is all about the incrementality. That's the important metric I just introduced to you. Am I making sense as of now?
So can you explain the power of incrementality part again? So 10% increase gives us $10. That's
This one, okay, yeah. Power means here not in the kind of to the power n. I'm not talking about in that sense. Power means the strength. So maybe some product will give you, as I showed you here, like some product you give a very small incrementality. Some product will give you a very high incrementality. So that's the power. Very high incrementality.
Sir, can we see how we calculate this through data?
Sorry.
Exactly, if two products are similar, how do we calculate this with data?
Yeah, I shall come to calculation.
Like, having an opportunity cost. And
Correct. I shall come to that. Yeah. But that's the kind of, conceptually, I should come to the calculation part. So how do sales change as the planogram changes, which items are bringing? So that's the kind of optimal planogram. Finally, it all leads to the planogram. So old planograms were like only the color, look, feel, shape. But then constantly this assortment optimization is the algorithm that works behind developing a planogram these days. So now comes to that example of calculation part. So this is the true view of incrementality. So what is happening is that there is brand A, for instance. You have increased, the current was this dark blue, this light blue is the new one. You've increased from $7 to $12. Direct impact is $5. But by increasing that thing, there is indirect impact, right? Indirect impact is for the brand B. It has reduced by $1 from 6 to 5. And for brand C, it has reduced to $10 to 9. Another dollar has been reduced. The total incrementality has been reduced from 5 to 3. That's the calculation part. So brand A sees a $5 increase incremental sales while adding an item. However, this new item has an indirect impact on brand B and C, decreasing sales by 2. Total incremental impact is $3. That's what it is. Making sense?
Yes, sir.
To the lady who asked me the question about the calculation.
Sir,
That's
how do we, so we just assume that the other factors are the same, and brand A is the one causing this decrease in brand B and brand C.
Yeah. So you have to study that factor, like what is the cannibalization effect? If I introduce one brand, what is the decrease in the sales of other brands? You cannot just increase just because the sales of that particular brand A is increasing. What is the impact of that increase in space to the other brands? That is something you have to study. And then totally, whether it is profitable or not, that's the decision you have to take. That is the concept of incrementality.
Tuhin, let me add to what Shatakshi is asking.
Please.
And Shatakshi, correct me if I'm wrong. So, I think what, say for example, if you look at the data here on the chart right now,
yeah.
We are doing it store wise. Are we doing it store wise? Which is my first question.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, for example, a state of Maharashtra throws up a data like this, but a state like of UP, nothing happens. So even if I go back and, put anything there alongside brand A, nothing is happening. So the entirety of it, how do I kind of, look at it?
No, see, nothing is happening cannot happen. That is for sure. Why? Because you have got a space constraint. So the moment you are increasing something, something is decreasing, has to decrease. one cannot increase you cannot keep increasing. Something has to decrease. You have got a space constraint. Any store, be it Maharashtra, UP, whatever it is, there is always a space constraint. So there is always, if you increase something, something will decrease.
So which means that we need to actually go back and it might be a good idea to evaluate it store-wise, city-wise.
It is store-wise always. It is always
Okay.
store-wise. It is not state-wise, by the way.
So typically it might work better for a modern retail format rather than a Kirana store.
These are generally done for the modern retail format, generally, because Kirana stores don't have that.
Yeah, that wherewithal and
financial power to apply this kind of analytics platforms, though applicable. By the way, don't think that they are not applicable. That applicable, very much applicable, because Kirana store also has that same space constraint, rather more space constraint, but they have not in that stage. It is only done by the modern retail, modern trade, what we say. But
remember that Tuhin, that we had this data that we used to look at called ORG retail audit.
Yeah.
So if I have to go back and look at a retail audit data like ORG, and if I have to actually go back and look at it, then obviously, the entire context changes here, that the kind of stuff that we are talking about here.
Sure.
Versus.
Yeah, things have augmented, things have evolved drastically, I would say. So please remember this: the analytics engine at the back end for the retail stores, they work store basis first of all, within store per SKU basis, per week basis, and they are all these demand forecasting models, market basket analysis. They all work at the back end because these are all data driven. You can actually see that by increasing or allocating more space to brand A, what kind of impact you are seeing at past and in the current trend. Yeah.
Sir, just a small question.
Yeah.
So herein, like we can see that bringing in brand A will bring an incremental impact of $3. What if, like, even though the margin would be of $5 here, but the rotation of this product would be very slow, while brand B and brand C, their rotation would be very high. So how do we then ensure in that sense that which
good
brand
question. It's actually a good question. It's actually a good question, and I have an answer to you in the next slide only. So here you can see it. So that's how. So this is the. By the way, most of this this model especially is from this how we at Nielsen used to use, and the next one is from McKinsey. So these are all the things. I have not taken any of the slides. You must be seeing from any of the books. I don't know even if the books are available or not. So these are all by what we do it day in and day out. So these are absolutely kind of being used currently. Well, to answer your question, so this is the average sales rate. Exactly, that's what you were asking. This is the average sales rate from slow to fast, and this is the incrementality from negative to positive. So we try to segregate this into 4 quadrants. And obviously, developed sector is the one which has got the high incrementality as well as the high average turnover, average sales rate. So nurture the sector if it is slow and incrementality is positive. Rationalize the sector if the sales rate is very high, but overall incrementality is poor, and just squeeze the sector if it is detrimental to category performance. Delist the worst performers. So that's how it goes. That's the kind of analytics framework on actionable insights we take from here. And
so
yeah.
In the previous slide done this. So the $1 difference in brand B and brand C, how do we establish that the causality is because of the increase in brand A of the item?
Would you please repeat your question?
Yeah. So can we be sure that the decrease of $1 in brand B and brand C is because specifically because of the new item? Yeah.
Good question. Very good question. Very good question. Very good question. And there comes the modeling techniques. There comes the modeling techniques like Satidas Peribas. There comes the modeling techniques like keeping all other variables constant, whether the changes because of this factor or not, or something else. So there is always a possibility always a possibility that this change in value can be because of other factors, as you rightly pointed out. By modeling means simply, again, since I am not going to many complex techniques, but since you are all exposed to regression, I'm just giving the example of regression only. So you have got hundreds of variables. From hundreds of variables, you are just eliminating 98 variables, and you're just keeping 2 variables. The dependent variable remains the same. Are you still finding that impact takes place? Or even in the 100 variables, what is the exact impact? How many factors are significant? What is the exact impact of each factor? If you can find out, you will get that answer. There comes the beauty of to answer the question. There comes the beauty or art and science of modeling. The gentleman who has asked me the question, I assume you are exposed to regression equation, right?
Yes, sir.
So you can pretty well assume, like, you have got, say, forget about 100, you have got 10 variables, 8 variables, 6 variables, 2 variables. Out of 2 variables also you can find the impact, significant change. 10 variables, 6 variables, what exactly causes the change? That answer this equation.
All right, sure, sir. Thank you.
That's the Nielsen way of assortment optimization, and this is the McKinsey way. They also look it, but they take it from a being a kind of Nielsen, being a kind of mode of a kind of, that's a kind of philosophical background of the organization. These guys, Nielsen is more of a kind of marketing research, analytics in this space, whereas McKinsey is more of a kind of overall business consultancy, and that's why they consider economic performance, uniqueness, cost to serve, strategic objectives. But essentially, they do the same thing. They also come out with the quadrants like economic performance index and uniqueness index, and then keep for sure. Essentially, do the same thing in the sense either they will keep for sure, potentially keep, potentially delist, and delist for sure. That's how they segregate it. Now, there can always be a situation of negative incrementality. So what produces negative incrementality? When as you can see, let's come to the example like brand with positive incrementality. If it is impact to brand is 7.8, but category opportunity cost is 4.6, it is still positive, but it can even go to the negative, like when it is category opportunity cost is $8.2, it is 1.8, the net brand incrementality goes down. So you have to be very cognizant about it, that shouldn't be negatively incremental. That's the question. This is exactly what I was saying a few slides back, that why does incrementality match trends? So demand forecasting, seasonality, trend is very important, but then this has to be calculated separately because there may be high demand for products, but the assortment cannot be maybe meeting these needs. So past trends, products that perform a well-known metric, past trends or past sales is never a metric of how much, what is the power of incrementality, how much incremental your product be. So don't take the trend or the past sales as a kind of proxy to incrementality variable in your model. So how does the model control for? So we take the store size, seasonality, regionality. We take the promotions, what kind of promotions are currently going on for each of the SKUs, if not the SKUs, at least the brands, for the models, for the assortment. What are the out of stock items in the assortment? Is the consumer shifting or differing shopper profiles? So, for instance, many a times that's exactly the consumer profiling part, or the consumer dynamics come into play. Many a times consumers start shifting from one types of product to the other types. Say, for example, there was a trend a few years back shifting to the organic food items from the traditional food items. So naturally, the retailers also have to consider about that. And nowadays there is another shift going on towards the vegan products. So that's another and the shift the retailer must be cognizant of. And that's again a very important decision for assortment optimization. The question is that what analytics should I use given the situation? So that is the first thing that I discussed with you is the quadrant diagnostics, like understand how my category works, what segments and brands are incremental, what are the opportunities for expansion, what are the opportunities to renovate. That can be optimization simulation, like what is the best assortment recommendation, how many SKUs should be within the different segments, brands, which SKUs. I shall discuss this in detail, the next two. And the order of entry ranking, which SKU should be top priority, which SKU should be deprioritized. So this is the order of entry. So we generally develop saturation curve for enabling analysis of optimal number of items, and then we incorporate or delist. So this is the quadrant diagnostic that we discussed. This what exactly does the bubble placement mean on the quadrant chart? So bubble tells us the average performance of SKUs in the bubble of these two key measures. What is this? Y-axis the velocity that I always mention, that is the sales dollars per store per week, and X is the incrementality, like incremental sales dollars per store per week. That's how things actually move. And size of bubble is the average number of items selling per store. And it of course can change over time. It's actually been done. If you all the backend can be Python or agnostic, but front end is being done by the visualization software. Of course, it is agnostic, but yeah, depending on the client's choice, we use W as a visualization front end, or the Microsoft BI as the visualization front end to showcase it. This is how is my order of entry calculated. The ranking is created by determining the potential sales velocity for each item, considering the current sales in conjunction with the incrementality and cannibalization calculated in assortment model. So that's exactly been done. Like this is the cumulative dollar sales, that is the per store per week, and this is the order of entry. And then we figure out the saturation curve, enabling the analysis of optimal number of items. This is the current sales performance 300 and the current average items carried, where it is meet, and then we figure out that what is this saturation curve says. So we can find out there's 18% sales gap. So if you can go back to this slide, that's exactly I have shown here. This is how this is the kind of Tableau dashboard that we show here. Like this is the opportunity curve, this is the sales gap, and we call it assortment opportunity. So this is the place where you can still increase the assortment. And then we will also come out with the items in current assortment. These are the items, and we have a way. I'm going to show you that which items to include in the assortment. That is a way to that also. I'm going to show you that. This one is to show that yes, there is a scope to increase. So this is exactly how do I identify which of my items should be added. That's a very important decision. So if our brand is brand A, so we can filtering the OE with our items given as the priority of our 12 items. Some standard terms you should be cognizant of is the ACV, or the all commodity volume, which is the total sales volume of all items sold in one store, a banner, enter market. This is the unit sales per ACV, or the sales rate, which we have used here, which means total sales. It's a kind of measure of velocity. What is the velocity at which it is moving? And finally, the percentage ACV distribution. So we precisely measure. So you have got, say, several brands, brand A, B, C, D, E, F. Several items are there, and then they have got their own sales per dollar ACV, percentage ACV, and they have got several dollars. Now you have to take only say $12 and see what are their ranks in brand A. So what we do is that we simply sort them as per that sales per dollar ACV, and then we get the percent ACV once we do that thing, and then we figure out what are the ranks. Okay, so yeah, maybe item 12 is not that important. The rank is 50. Item 8 is 27, like that. So that's the rank we give to each item for each brand in a store. That's only then only you can enlist or delist, as I was saying to initially about the strategy slides, like this, like the strategic listing, systematic listing. How will you do that? So these are the ways to do it. Yeah. Similarly, the systematic delisting. How do I identify which competitive items should be removed? So
Sir, I
typically,
have a,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No,
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, so the $209 here, is that the additional sales over and above when added, when this item is added, or is this like separately on the $1 million dollar sales?
It is the ACB, sales per dollar. ACB means it is the sales rate. It is total sales. It is not the cannibalization effect. It is the given a product per 1 million. What is the total velocity that describes how quickly the product is selling?
Right. Okay.
So in the same manner, you are ranking it again, and then you are having all these, the poor performance. Yeah, band B, item 10, 11, 12, 15, item 5, item 16. They are not doing very good in generating the total sales. So you can delist them. This is exactly the change, say the percent change, the simulation software that we use. By the way, what I want to say is that don't get bogged down by one language. So this agnostic part is very important, especially in our Professor Dasgupta must also be knowing about that. In our time, we had only SAS. Then SPSS came. Then all SAS, SPSS died a natural death after the advent of open source software. Then came the R, after that Python, then the Scala. A lot of birth and demise we have seen. So don't get bogged down by the software. What is more important is that the philosophy under the software. Suppose if you know the regression equation, as I constantly referring to, or any optimization techniques for that matter, how to implement or which software to use really doesn't count. That is a kind of child's play. That doesn't matter. So don't get bogged down that whether I should, because that's a question I generally get, R or Python. That's not a question. Similarly, I have shown you a software. This software is a kind of just a proprietary software, as you can see here. All these LCD screens greater than 46 inches has been sorted for all the brands, and we have found that is the average number of items and total sales values. We have done the actual number, then the simulation. Now the simulation, if you know how to do simulation, that's more important. The different types of simulation techniques, but whether it is which particular software to use really doesn't matter. They may give slightly maybe negligible difference in values because of how the formula calibrated in the backend, but otherwise that doesn't matter. What really matters is that do you know the underlying logic? Do you and can you take the business decision out of it? These are the two things that count. Yes. So yeah, coming back to the point here is that you can see here the actual simulated, the change, the percent change in the average number of items and the total sales values. So what actually happens is that you have to do the constant simulation. That's very important. Very important. And simulation again simulation cannot be done in isolation. At the back end, again the demand forecasting takes place. With the demand forecasting, you are actually simulating the different factors in the environment. You are simulating had you have 2 other products, 3 other products, new product into the category, or delisting, how the sales would have changed. So that's the kind of simulation you have to constantly do. And then by the effect of randomization, replication, you will come to a conclusion. Yes, this is the kind of best decision. So you can see here the best decision. We can see here this 4.2% change. So that's the kind of decision you can take here. Yeah, so you can pretty well Sony greater than 46 inches LCD or LED. Yeah, LCD. This is LCD. You can always increase. Then the prioritizing the new product pipeline, again, it's very tempting. As I mentioned, it's tempting that you will keep all the new product items here in this top right corner, which might not necessarily be the right decision. Why I have discussed here. So However, the new SKUs with low differentiation in this quadrant could easily result in splintering incrementally, thereby pushing its future placement to the left. So a very important concept here, I'm not reading it out, but a very important concept here is that when you are doing the assortment is the uniqueness, the differentiation, how different your SKU is. Because the more it's different, the less the cannibalization. This is how we generally create an assortment tree. Like it should give the category guidance. Like within that canned, that is this is the shelf-stable diners. So within that, these are the different canned items. Within the pasta, you have got the different brands. Within the brands, you have got the different SKUs. And the questions here is that from the macro and the micro example, like what is the ideal number of items in individual categories to optimize sales volume? So, and how can niche categories be evaluated equitably? And in the micro also, say in the pasta, shell, and soup, you have got the 3 brands, and each of these brands have got different SKUs. So which segment should be focused on in the future? Do innovative products and concepts yield an additional value? So all these answers you can get from the simulation part. You have to constantly simulate with the new data of both the in-house and the external environment. A very important part is the external environment part. When you will be a consultant, don't just rely on the data given by the organization, because that's internal data. A lot of economic variables, even the weather variables for that matter. Say the next example I've given is the not this one. This the example I've given about the yogurt. I shall come to the example because I've done it for a customer in UK, and just we incorporated the weather variable, and the model efficiency increased significantly because the sales of yogurt is very much dependent on the weather part. Even for one client to increase the holidays, and that actually helped. Weather is not only for yogurt but many products, even for the non-food products also. Like one of our customers is on the fertilizers, and they're also for the model things which have used the growth of the crops is dependent on the weather. So it's a very important variable. So and again, a very important thing is that on this regard, I must say that don't just take the variables as you get from the either from the organization or from the external environment. A very important concept is the variable transformation, or what we do is that we create the new variables. So you think very independently that to accomplish the problem, what variable is required. Now, what variable is given and what variable is required, there can be a gap between the two. So why don't you combine 2, 3, 4 variables and create a kind of proxy to something that is required. So that would serve your purpose a lot. That would help you a lot. So yeah, these are the few slides that I have created about how this category management is been done by the trade marketing, but the product marketing, by the retailer tree. Like every department, they have got different categories. Every category has separate brands, every brand has separate SKUs, and that's the decision they have to take. They means, of course, not any gentleman, but the software takes it. Yeah. And the last thing that I'm going to cover here is that the consumer decision trees are a very important part. So while this simulation part, this optimization part, while they're drawing the quadrants or visualizing the quadrants are important, it's very important to also simultaneously create a kind of consumer decision trees for every product category, like which will help us to figure out sales to be released SKUs, likelihood of switching from one need state to another, and it simulates the switching behavior, which also have got the brand switching model, SKU switching model, which precisely shows that what is the likelihood of switching. Is it a kind of lower likelihood of switching, or there is higher likelihood of switching? So you must be acquainted, or if not, you can always study the choice theory, right? So what helps between choosing brand A over brand B, in case brand A is not available or brand B is not available. So here you can see here that in this example that most unit sales of say the lactose-free yogurt, for brand A will be distributed to other brand A yogurts. So that's how things go. So lower likelihood of switching within 8. And whereas a smaller portion will be distributed to brand B, and the still smaller share will go to the soy milk yogurt. So don't think that these guys will come here if this is not available. So people generally tend to be more, more loyal to the brands, and that's the kind of behavior that gets exhibited here. The other decision that you have to take is from this choice model is the need state density and the private label share. So in the need state density, you have to see that in the need state, that means what we have done here is that we have actually created the from the consumer decision, we have done the special purpose or indulgence. With this special purpose, lactose free or kind of vegan or soy milk. So these are the kind of special purpose. So within the special purpose, whether you have got sufficient number of brands or private labels exist or not. So that's again a private label should know, right? What is private label?
Yes, it's the brand of the retail store.
Correct. It's coming up heavily, not only for the offline but also for the online. That's again a very important thing. Nowadays, you will find even Amazon has their own products, right? Or many of them, not only Amazon, many of the guys have their own products. So they do manufacture the products. Not that they manufacture by themselves. They do subcontracting. But again, a very important product, you have to take a decision that whether this need state is saturated or you have to incorporate more private labels to it, more brands to it. So that's the need states and private label. The other important part that this Advanced Analytics showcase is that what are the hidden champion SKUs, in the sense that what particular SKUs really generate the sales, and what we do here is that we tell the sales per week per store and the y-axis, and we have the total listing index x-axis, and then we can figure out that what are the performance of the different SKUs within that. So this is in a nutshell of this assortment management. So what you can do, what you should do rather after this class is that you should study the different optimization techniques. That is, if you already know what are the traditional optimization techniques like linear programming, non-linear programming, integer programming. If you already know those things, then you move to the next levels like swarm optimization, and colony optimization, genetic algorithm, taboo search, and see that how those optimization techniques and the different types of simulation techniques. It can be Monte Carlo method. You can even apply the different advanced analytics to it, like adding one item to it, how it can change, say that the Markov chain, for example. If you are adding one more item to the Markov chain, what is the incrementality you are seeing? So my suggestion is that you study those things which you know, I guess the optimization techniques must have been taught to you, and then you see how you can relate those techniques to this assortment optimization. By that way, what will happen is that you can actually relate that how these softwares work. So,
Sir, sorry to interrupt you.
please.
For the traditional different optimization methods, you named 4 or 5 other methods. Could you name them again a little slower, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Not hear them properly.
Sure. So anti-colony, sorry, my bad. Anti-colony optimization, swarm optimization, colony optimization, swarm optimization, genetic algorithm.
Is it possible to put it on the chat, Twin?
I have that. 1 minute.
I mean, you can just type it on the chat.
Okay. Type it on the chat. I have the center slides with me. Supply chain analytics slide. They're all the supply chain analytics techniques. I can show it to you right away. By the way, a gentleman was asking me about deep learning techniques. So please remember, even in the demand forecasting nowadays, I use the deep learning techniques. all this. So traditionally, we had these classical statistics like ARIMA, panel data, ARIMA cards. Then we had that genetic algorithm, hierarchical temporal memory. But in the most, by the way, very important part which I missed when I was discussing deep learning in the beginning, don't think that deep learning, though not invented, I would say, though primarily been used initially for this computer vision, but nowadays been used for all the techniques, including demand forecasting. Yeah, even for channel analytics, whatever. Nowadays, nobody uses this classical statistical analytics. It's all been done by the deep learning techniques. Okay, coming back to the point, the question that was like this, I have. Yeah, this is the one. So this is the classical algorithms. You have got this branch and bound or mixing set programming. You can take a screenshot quickly. That's the best thing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Not that you have to know it because you are not statistician, or not that I'm saying to you personally, but not that the MBA students are not statisticians per se. So you need not know every algorithm in details, but at least you know what needs to be optimized. What are you can give the constraints. So this software nowadays has got very good GUI. Even all the proprietary software, not only the open source one, they have got the GUI, and then even if it is kind of you have to code, it's only about calling the function, calling the library in the R or Python. So no big deal. But what is important is that you know what are the constraints in the model, what you need to optimize, what you need to maximize, and then the software will take care of the rest of the things. So it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult in our times. In our times, you have to literally do it without pen and paper. Literally, you have to do everything in pen and paper. So that was 100 times or million times more difficult than what it is today. Nowadays, everything has been done in the software. So don't worry about these things. Yeah. But you must be knowing that what you are doing. I have seen many of the MBA students, they don't even know what they are doing. That's something, kind of suicidal, I would say, harakiri. So you must be knowing what you are doing, why you are doing it. And more importantly, I have shown a few slides that how you take a decision. That's a very important thing. Like, say, yeah, how do I slice? How do I identify which complete item should be removed? So suppose you have got a job in a retail store, and then you have been given a task of rationalizing the assortment. So you must be knowing that how do I identify which items should be removed? So that's the thing, or which items should be added. So these are the kind of actionable insights. It is not about knowing statistics or knowing R Python or TensorFlow. It is about can I take a decision? Do I know the logic how to take a decision? That's the most important. So with that, I shall close it with some note of what I'm going to take in the next class. I'm going to bring some latest technology that have been used in retail stores. Like for instance, the beacon technology. You can do a quick study on that also, how they are being used for retail store, and I'm going to showcase you a few use cases that how those technologies are used in US heavily and started coming in India, and helps in taking it is beyond analytics also sometimes. It includes the IoT, Internet of Things, and how that helps in connecting the customers who are entering the stores. You can understand from the moment the customer is entering the store, you can understand who the customer is, what are the needs, wants, and at the same time, when the same customer goes back to the home, how can you understand who the customer is and can show them the right promotions and recommend the right product? So that's where I shall take you to the next class. By the way, I have forgotten to show you this slide. That's how a kind of planogram looks like, kind of planogram stock analysis. Of course, this is a kind of again a screenshot from the software which we use. All these are proprietary software, as I mentioned, but that's how it looks like. Yeah, we have got several variables for planogram. Is the most critical, I would say, most critical analytics piece of the problem. Like it has got so many variables. Like this is one part that I discussed today, is all about the financial part. What I have not discussed is about the aesthetics part. So that look, feel, color, texture, 50 variables goes on this visualization part. So yeah, things get very complex, and that too, when it changes across the geography, you have to always localize it, customize it. So things get pretty interesting. Yeah. Any questions so far, guys? I know it's a bit heavy. Nevertheless, this is just the beginning. We will dive deep further in the subsequent classes and clarify your questions. And if you can give me either I can share with professor or any of you some reading materials, and that would make your life a bit easy.
Yes, sir. Regarding that, any reading material or book suggestions that you might have?
Book I don't believe, because books generally get very obsolete. Like what is happening today in the industry, somebody will read it and then somebody will write it. It will be at least 2-3 years old, 4 years old. Yeah, what I'm going to get, I've got lot of papers from McKinsey, Nielsen, where I am worked and where I do the consultancy. So how we do it, what kind of problems we face, and how we come out with a solution. I shall give you some reading materials which will be very useful for you to really work on while you will be in the industry.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions before I call it a day?
Yeah, I think maybe we can keep a list of things that we have understood today, and probably when we come back on Saturday, we can start with some questions.
Sure. Sounds good. Perfect. Perfect.
So guys, can we call it off?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful
Thank you,
Thanks a lot,
Tuhin.
sir.
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Guys, please use this link only on Saturday. We will use the Wednesday class link on Saturday also, and with Sunday also. So please use the same link to log in for the Saturday and the Sunday class.
All right, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tuhin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.